The drunk shoved Mike Tyson in the chest with both hands. Tyson didn't stumble. He didn't blink. His feet stayed planted on that barroom floor like they'd been bolted there, and the man who had just made the worst decision of his entire life was now standing close enough to smell the danger coming off Iron Mike's skin. What happened in the next 45 seconds would become Vegas legend, a story whispered about for decades by bartenders, bouncers, and every single person unlucky enough to be holding a drink in that room. But here's the thing. To understand why this moment mattered, why it turned into a story people still tell at 2 in the morning when the conversation gets real, you need to know who walked into that bar first and what he was carrying with him that nobody could see. It was a Saturday night in Las Vegas. The kind of Saturday where the city feels like it's vibrating. Tyson had come in through a side entrance. He did that a lot in those days. No entourage, no security detail, just a compact man in a black t-shirt with hands that had knocked out 35 professional fighters, moving through a casino lounge the way a shadow moves across a wall. Quiet, almost invisible. That's the part people always get wrong about Tyson. Off camera, away from the lights, the man could disappear into a room. He wanted to disappear. He'd been doing press all week for something, some event, some obligation, and he needed a bourbon in 40 minutes where nobody asked him to be Mike Tyson. He found a booth in the back corner, sat down, ordered Hennessy neat. The bartender recognized him instantly, set the glass down without a word, and gave him space. That bartender had been working the strip for 19 years. He knew when a famous man wanted conversation and when he wanted silence. Tyson wanted silence. For about 12 minutes he got it. Believe me, those 12 minutes were the calm before something ugly. Now let me tell you about the other guy. His name was Dale. I'm not going to give you his last name because honestly, he's been through enough. Dale was 6'2", maybe 220. The kind of guy who played linebacker in high school and never stopped telling people about it. He was in Vegas for a bachelor party. His buddy's bachelor party, not his own, because Dale was the kind of man who'd been engaged twice and married 0 times. And if you spent 5 minutes with him after his 4th drink, you'd understand exactly why. Dale had been drinking since 3 in the afternoon. It was now 11:15 at night. You do the math. 8 hours of vodka and Red Bull had turned him into the loudest object in any room he entered, and when he walked into that lounge with 2 of his boys trailing behind him, the energy shifted immediately. The bartender's jaw tightened. A couple near the window grabbed their tab. A cocktail waitress changed her route to avoid walking past his table. Dale spotted Tyson within 90 seconds. Get this. He didn't whisper to his friends. He didn't nudge them and quietly point. He announced it, full volume. Yo, that's Mike Tyson. That's Iron Mike right there. His voice hit every corner of the room. Tyson's eyes lifted from his glass. Just his eyes. His head didn't move. His body didn't shift. He registered the noise, cataloged it, and went back to his drink. But Dale was already moving. His 2 friends tried to grab him. One of them, a shorter guy in a Hawaiian shirt, actually got a hand on Dale's arm and pulled. Dale shook him off without looking back. He crossed that room in about 6 strides, each one louder than the last, and he arrived at Tyson's booth with his chest puffed out and his chin high and a grin on his face that said he had absolutely no idea what he was walking into. Mike Tyson. Bro, I gotta tell you something. Tyson looked up. His expression was flat, not angry, not annoyed, flat. The kind of face a man wears when he's calculating how much trouble the next 60 seconds are going to bring. What's up, man? Tyson said, low, even. Bro, I used to watch all your fights, all of them. I'm telling you right now, I could have gone a few rounds with you. I'm serious. I played football, man. I can take a hit. Now here's what nobody tells you. Tyson had heard this exact line probably 10,000 times in his life. Every bar, every restaurant, every airport, some guy with shoulders and a buzz cut wanted to tell Mike Tyson they could hang. It was the cost of being the most feared puncher who ever lived. Men needed to measure themselves against him. It was some primal thing they couldn't control. And Tyson, to his credit, had developed a system for handling it. He'd nod, he'd say something short, he'd let them take a photo, and they'd walk away feeling like they'd touched greatness without getting hurt. That system worked 99% of the time. Dale was the 1%. Tyson gave the nod. That's cool, brother. Appreciate it. He lifted his glass. A dismissal. Clear, polite, final. Dale didn't move. Instead, he pulled out the chair across from Tyson and sat down without being invited. His two friends were standing 10 feet back now, frozen, their faces carrying the expression of men watching a car accident develop in slow motion. Nah, I'm serious though, Dale said, leaning forward. People think boxing is all that, but I'm telling you, a real athlete, a football guy, somebody who actually knows how to use their whole body, that's a different animal. You know what I mean? Tyson set his glass down. His fingers stayed wrapped around it. His thumb moved slowly across the rim. Anyone who'd ever watched Tyson in a pre-fight press conference would have recognized that gesture. It was what he did right before things escalated, a tiny, almost unconscious tell. I hear you, Tyson said. Enjoy your night, man. Second dismissal. Clearer than the first. Tyson's voice had dropped half an octave. The bartender noticed. He picked up the phone behind the bar, ready to call security. The cocktail waitress stopped walking entirely and stood still near the service station, watching. Dale leaned back in the chair and spread his arms wide. Come on, Mike. You're not even going to talk to me? I'm a fan, bro. I'm showing you respect. I swear this happened. What Dale did next changed the temperature of the entire room. He reached across the table and tapped Tyson on the forearm. Not a slap, not a grab, a tap. 2 fingers against Mike Tyson's wrist. Casual, familiar. The way you'd touch a buddy you'd known for 20 years. Tyson pulled his arm back. Slowly. Deliberately, the way you pull something away from a flame. His eyes locked onto Dale's, and for the first time, there was something behind them that hadn't been there before. Not anger exactly. Recognition. Tyson was recognizing what Dale was. Not a fan, not a drunk looking for a photo, a challenger, a man who needed to push until something broke. Don't touch me, brother, Tyson said. 5 words, each one carrying weight. Dale laughed, full, open, head-back laughter. Oh, what? What are you gonna do, hit me? You gonna hit me, Mike? That's assault, bro. I'll own everything you got. And there it was. The calculation. Dale wasn't just drunk and stupid. Dale was drunk and strategic. He wanted Tyson to swing. He wanted the lawsuit. He wanted the story. He wanted to walk out of that bar, either as the man who survived a punch from Mike Tyson, or as the man who got rich because Mike Tyson couldn't control himself. Either way, Dale won. At least that's what Dale thought. Here's where it gets real. Tyson recognized the trap because Tyson had lived the trap. He'd been baited before. He'd fallen for it before. It had cost him millions. It had cost him years. The Mike Tyson sitting in that booth in 2017 was not the same Mike Tyson who'd bitten Evander Holyfield's ear off in 1997. 20 years of consequences had carved patience into a man who was born without any. And that patience was the only thing keeping Dale's jaw attached to his skull right now. Tyson stood up. Not fast, not explosive. He rose from that booth the way a thunderhead builds on the horizon, slow and inevitable. And when he was standing, when the full width of his shoulders became visible, when the thickness of his neck and the cords running down his forearms caught the overhead light, Dale's grin flickered, just for a second, a micro-expression of doubt that crossed his face and vanished. But Tyson saw it, trust me on that. Tyson was trained to see it. His entire career had been built on seeing exactly that flicker in a man's eyes and knowing what it meant. Dale stood up too. He had 4 inches on Tyson. He had reach. He had youth. He was 34 years old and Mike Tyson was 51. By every metric that Dale understood, he had the advantage. Dale didn't understand the right metrics. Sit down, man, one of Dale's friends called from behind him, the guy in the Hawaiian shirt. His voice cracked on the word down. He knew. Everyone in that room knew except Dale. Dale ignored him. He stepped closer to Tyson. They were separated by maybe 18 inches now. Dale could feel the heat coming off Tyson's body, could see the scar tissue above his eyes, could see the way Tyson's hands hung at his sides. Loose, the fingers slightly curled, not making fists but ready to make fists in a fraction of a second. You're old, Mike, Dale said, quieter now, almost a whisper. You're old and you know it. That's why you won't do nothing. And this is where it gets interesting, and I mean genuinely interesting. Because Tyson did something nobody in that room expected. Not the bartender, not Dale's friends, not Dale, not a single person watching this unfold. He laughed. Not a big laugh, not a performance. A small, genuine exhale of amusement. The kind of laugh that comes from a place of such complete superiority that the threat in front of you becomes funny. Tyson shook his head, and he laughed, and for one brief second the tension in that room cracked down the middle. Then Tyson spoke, and his voice was calm, conversational, almost gentle. "You know what's funny, brother? I used to be you. I used to walk into rooms looking for exactly this, looking for someone to push, someone to test, and you want to know what I found out?" Dale didn't answer. His mouth was open slightly. The script in his head had Tyson swinging or Tyson backing down. It didn't have Tyson talking. Tyson continued. "I found out it wasn't about them. It was never about them. It was about the thing inside me I couldn't shut up. That voice telling me I needed to prove something every single night." He paused. "You got that voice right now, don't you? Now pay attention to what happened next, because this was the moment. Not a punch, not a knockout. The moment." Dale's face changed. Something behind his eyes shifted, and for about 2 seconds, the real Dale surfaced. Not the drunk, not the show-off, not the guy who needed a bar full of strangers to watch him stand up to Mike Tyson. The real one, the one who'd been engaged twice and couldn't close the deal. The one who peaked in high school and knew it. The one who came to Vegas for someone else's bachelor party and drank for 8 straight hours because the silence in his own head was louder than the slot machines. 2 seconds of truth. That's all it was. Then Dale buried it, shoved it back down, because vulnerability in front of strangers was the one hit Dale couldn't take. "Man, get out of here with that therapy talk," Dale said. But his voice had no bite. The edge was gone. He was performing now, and everyone could tell. This is where it should have ended. This is where, in a reasonable universe, Dale would have mumbled something, walked back to his friends, and spent the rest of the night pretending it never happened. But Dale had one more act of stupidity left in him. One more move that would turn this from a tense encounter into a story that would outlive everyone in that room. Dale shoved Tyson. Both hands, center of the chest, a full, aggressive, unmistakable push. And that's where we started this story. That shove, those planted feet. The room holding its breath. Tyson absorbed the push without moving backward, not an inch. His center of gravity was so low, his base so wide, that Dale's force simply transferred into the floor. It was involuntary. Tyson's body had been conditioned to absorb forward pressure since he was 13 years old in Cus D'Amato's gym. He couldn't be pushed back by a drunk any more than a fire hydrant could be pushed over by a toddler. Dale's face went white, not from fear, from physics. He had put genuine effort into that shove, and the man in front of him hadn't budged. And in that moment Dale understood something his brain had been refusing to process all night. The difference between him and Mike Tyson was not a matter of degree. It was a matter of kind. They were not the same species of physical being. Now watch what Tyson did, because this was mastery, not boxing mastery. Something deeper. Tyson's right hand came up. Fast, blinding fast. The kind of fast that a 51-year-old man should not have been capable of. Dale flinched. His whole body seized up, his arms flew to his face, his knees buckled slightly, and he stumbled backward half a step. Pure reflex, pure animal terror. But Tyson's hand didn't make a fist. His hand came up open, and it landed on Dale's shoulder. Firm, controlling, not striking, gripping. He caught Dale the way you'd catch a stumbling child. Tyson pulled Dale close enough to whisper, and the room was dead silent now. Every single person in that lounge was frozen. The bartender had the phone in his hand but hadn't dialed. The cocktail waitress had her hand over her mouth. Dale's friends were standing rigid, one of them gripping the back of a chair so hard his knuckles had gone pale. Tyson whispered something in Dale's ear. Nobody heard it. That's the truth. Nobody in that room heard what Mike Tyson said to Dale in that moment. The bartender, who told this story for years afterward, said he was close enough to hear a murmur but couldn't make out the words. Dale's friends said the same thing. Whatever Tyson said, it was between two men standing chest to chest in a Las Vegas bar at 11:30 on a Saturday night, and it stayed between them. But here's what they did see. They saw Dale's body go slack, not collapse, not crumple, just release. Every muscle that had been coiled tight for the last 5 minutes let go at once. His shoulders dropped, his hands fell to his sides, his chin dipped toward his chest, and then Dale started crying. No sound, no sobbing, just tears. running down the face of a 6'2", 220-pound man who had walked across a bar to challenge the baddest man on the planet, and who was now standing in that man's grip with water streaming from his eyes. Or hold on, let that sit. Because this is the part of the story that makes it legendary. Not the violence, not the punch that never came, the tears. A drunk stranger crying on Mike Tyson's shoulder in a bar while the entire room watched in total silence. Tyson held him there for about 10 seconds. Then he guided Dale back to his chair, gently, the way a cornerman guides a fighter to his stool after a brutal round. He sat Dale down, and he stood over him for a moment, and then Tyson did something that broke the entire room open. He sat back down across from Dale. He called the bartender over. He ordered 2 drinks, Hennessy for himself, water for Dale. And when the drinks came, Tyson slid the water across the table and picked up his own glass. "Drink that," Tyson said. Not a command, an instruction, fatherly. Dale drank the water. His hands were shaking. The glass rattled against his teeth. Dale's friends approached the table, slowly, carefully. The guy in the Hawaiian shirt spoke first. "We are so sorry, Mr. Tyson. He's not usually, he's had a lot to drink and we should've. We're sorry." Tyson waved them off. "He's all right. He's gonna be all right. Sit down." They sat. Mark my words, those 2 men sat at that table like they'd been summoned by a principal. Straight-backed, hands folded, absolutely terrified. For the next 20 minutes, Mike Tyson sat with 3 strangers and talked. Not about boxing, not about fighting, not about anything the way you'd expect. He asked about the bachelor party. He asked who was getting married. He asked Dale what he did for a living. Dale worked in logistics for a trucking company outside of Phoenix. Tyson nodded at that, told him it sounded like honest work, said honest work was the only thing that ever saved him. And Dale, who was slowly sobering up through a combination of water, adrenaline, and the surreal experience of having his entire identity disassembled and rebuilt by a man he'd tried to provoke, said almost nothing. He nodded. He sipped his water. Occasionally he wiped his face with the back of his hand, but mostly he just sat there and experienced the deeply strange sensation of being seen by someone he'd assumed would destroy him. Now you're probably wondering about that whisper. What did Tyson say? I don't know. Nobody knows. Dale has never told anyone, and I've looked. I've read every interview, every Reddit thread, every barroom retelling. The words themselves are gone. Whatever Tyson put in that man's ear stayed planted there, private and permanent. But I'll tell you what I think. And this is just me talking, so take it for what it's worth. I think Tyson told Dale something about himself. Something real. Something from the years when Tyson was the one walking into rooms looking for trouble, needing the world to acknowledge him, needing to prove that he mattered. I think he gave Dale a piece of his own darkness and said, "Here, look at this. This is where your road goes." I think he showed Dale the destination, and Dale, who was drunk enough to have his walls down, received it. You want to know the real power move? It wasn't the speed of Tyson's hand. It wasn't the physical dominance, the planted feet, the unmovable frame. The real power move was the restraint. Tyson could have ended Dale in under a second, not figuratively, literally. A single hook from Mike Tyson, even at 51, even years past his prime, would have separated Dale from consciousness and possibly from several of his teeth. Dale would have hit that floor and woken up in a hospital bed with his jaw wired shut, and a story he'd be too embarrassed to tell. But Tyson chose a different weapon. He chose the thing that had taken him 51 years to develop, the thing no trainer had ever taught him, the thing Cus D'Amato never got around to because Cus died too soon. Tyson chose mercy, and mercy, delivered by a man capable of extraordinary violence, is the most devastating force on earth. Here's the aftermath. Dale and his friends stayed for another 30 minutes. When they left, Dale shook Tyson's hand. Didn't say much, just shook it and walked out. His friends flanked him, guiding him toward the elevator, and they disappeared into the casino. The bartender came over to clear the table. He looked at Tyson. Tyson looked at him. "Happens more than you'd think," Tyson said. "You handled that better than anyone I've ever seen handle anything," the bartender replied. Tyson finished his Hennessy, set the glass down softly, pulled a $100 bill from his pocket and left it on the table, stood up, and then he said the line, the quiet power line that the bartender repeated for years and that eventually made its way to me. "I spent my whole life learning how to break people. took even longer learning how to not. 14 words. He walked out through the side door. Gone. If this story hit you somewhere real, if it told you something about power and restraint and the difference between strength and violence, hit that subscribe button right now. One click. That's all. We build these stories for people who understand that the most dangerous person in the room is never the loudest one. Now let me tell you what happened after. Because every legend has a coda. The bartender told the story to his coworkers the next day. They told their friends. Within a week, it had spread through every service staff network on the Las Vegas Strip. Bartenders, dealers, valets, bellhops, they all heard about the night Mike Tyson made a drunk man cry without throwing a single punch. The story grew the way stories do. Some versions had Tyson pinning Dale against the wall. Some had Dale swinging first. Some had security dragging Dale out in handcuffs. None of those versions were true. The truth was quieter and stranger and better than any of them. Dale, for his part, vanished into his life in Phoenix. He went back to the trucking company. He went back to his routines. But according to one of his friends, the guy in the Hawaiian shirt, something was different after Vegas. Dale drank less. Not sober, just less. He stopped picking fights at sports bars. He stopped telling people he could have played college ball. Small changes, incremental stuff, the kind of shifts that happen when a man catches a glimpse of who he really is in a moment he can't take back. Did Tyson fix him? No. You don't fix a person in 45 seconds in a bar, but you can crack a door open. You can show someone a window into themselves that they've been boarding up for years. And sometimes, if the timing is right and the messenger is powerful enough, a person walks through that door on their own. Tyson, meanwhile, kept being Tyson. He showed up to his events. He did his podcast. He tended his pigeons. He lived his complicated, beautiful, broken, reconstructed life. And he probably forgot about Dale within a week. That's not coldness. That's volume. When you've been the most famous fighter alive for 3 decades, the individual encounters blur together. Dale was a Tuesday night to Tyson, maybe a Thursday, just another man in a long line of men who needed to push against something immovable to understand their own limits. But for Dale, that night was everything. It was the night the myth became a man, and the man turned out to be more dangerous with his words than he ever was with his fists. It was the night Dale learned that real strength doesn't announce itself, doesn't puff up, doesn't need a room full of witnesses. Real strength sits in a corner booth with a glass of Hennessy and gives you every chance to walk away before it shows you exactly how outmatched you are. You know what the bartender said to me when he told this story? He said he'd worked the Strip for nearly 2 decades. He'd seen celebrities lose their temper. He'd seen athletes throw punches over nothing. He'd seen movie stars scream at valets and musicians trash hotel rooms and billionaires berate waitresses until they cried. And in all those years, in all those thousands of interactions between famous people and the public, the most impressive thing he ever witnessed was Mike Tyson not hitting someone. Think about that. The most impressive display of power was the absence of power. The most legendary moment was the punch that never landed. That's the paradox of Mike Tyson. The man who was built to destroy discovered that creation is harder, that restraint costs more than violence, that the hardest fight is the one you win by refusing to fight. He learned it late. He learned it through prison and bankruptcy and public humiliation and the slow, grinding work of becoming a person instead of a persona. But he learned it. And on one random Saturday night in a Las Vegas lounge, a drunk named Dale became the proof. I think about this story a lot, not because of the confrontation. Confrontations happen everywhere, every night, in every city. I think about the whisper, those unknown words that traveled from one man's mouth to another man's ear and landed somewhere deep enough to make a grown man weep in public. We'll never know what Tyson said. And honestly, maybe that's the point. Maybe the words don't matter. Maybe what mattered was who said them and where they came from. When a man who has lived through genuine darkness, who has been the villain and the victim, who has tasted the worst of himself and survived it, when that man leans in and tells you something true, the words are almost irrelevant. It's the source that shatters you. Dale got shattered that night. And maybe, just maybe, he got put back together a little better than before. That's the legend. Not of a knockout, not of a beatdown. The legend of Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, standing in a bar at 51 years old with every reason to unleash and choosing instead to reach, to connect, to save a stranger from himself. The bartender still works the strip. He's older now, slower, thinking about retirement. But every few months, someone new starts behind the bar, and they hear about the night Tyson came in. They hear about Dale, they hear about the shove, and the whisper, and the tears, and the water glass sliding across the table. And every single time, the new guy asks the same question. What did Tyson say to him? And the bartender gives the same answer. I don't know. But whatever it was, it hit harder than any punch I've ever seen. That's the story. That's the legend. A man walked into a bar looking for a fight and found something that hurt worse and healed better. The cocky drunk fan tested Mike Tyson's patience. It was the biggest mistake of his life, and the best thing that ever happened to him. That's how legends work. They don't always end with someone on the floor. Sometimes they end with someone standing up straighter than they've stood in years, walking out into a Vegas night with wet cheeks and a quiet mind, carrying words they'll never repeat from a man they'll never forget. Iron Mike, still the baddest man alive. Just not for the reasons you think.